want to start right at the beginning, though, of your career and the way that you play, like how individualistic it is. Like, how did you learn that in an era when it wasn't that common to play as you do?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like, right from the start, I've always been drawn to players who did it a bit differently. So Adam Gilchrist was initial, as a wicketkeeper batsman, his style was quite different to the mould at the time, so I was really drawn to that. And then someone like Kevin Peterson, I loved when the way he came into English cricket and was un-English basically, but always been drawn to those type of players, whether it's cricket or other sports. So wanted to try and emulate that, try things, do things differently. And I think I was quite lucky when I got onto the Somerset Academy. Jason Kerr, who's now the head coach at Somerset, would almost start sessions with a bit of a free go at stuff. Like, you can do whatever you want, try things out, half an hour of. And that really suited me. I'd bat left-handed or I'd try different shots and stuff like that. And that sort of just married up with the way I saw the game and wanting to try and do things a bit differently or just find my own style. And I've been through stages where you're trying to copy others and try and go away from that. But I think basically you're just trying to be the best version of yourself. And I always, right at the start was sort of drawn to players who had a bit of an X factor or did things differently.
And did other sports influence you at times when you were younger? Because you're very good at everything, annoyingly, apart from football. But you're annoyingly good at everything. Did other sports, hockey or something, influence the way that you play some of those shots, the scoops and the rounds?
I just liked all the other sports. Anything with a ball I was into. I liked just trying different things and play, and I think they're all mixed up together. I know that people will say certain players, that's a shot from this sport or it's from that sport, but I think the hand-eye coordination stuff just kind of goes across the board. But I just enjoyed other sports. So I think there's different merits to probably specialising early or trying to have a broad view of and try everything. But I was into everything. I liked trying different things. Yes, maybe there are things that cross over or can come into cricket from other sports, but really I think if you're just playing with a ball and it's hand-eye coordination or you're trying to hit a ball, I think it all kind of just mixes into one as well.
Yeah, there's a game that I actually saw you, I reckon the first time I properly watched you play an innings at Lord's in the 40 over final. You got 80 odd off 50 odd balls. Do you remember that, and did that feel like a big innings in a final? I think you were 20 years old at the time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that was against Surrey in the final. And I'd had a really good season with Somerset in that role as sort of number 7, coming in at the back end of innings. And that was a huge game for me as unfortunately we lost the game, but personally to perform at that stage and in front of a big crowd, and Lord's finals were something I used to go and watch as a kid, so that was pretty cool. And that was probably just sort of getting to, there's sort of steps in your career that, I can do it in this environment or under this pressure or against this bowling attack. So it was, a really important moment personally for me to, sort of another tick in the box and a confidence builder that, maybe I can do it here, maybe I can go on to the next level.
So you get to that stage where you've done it domestically, you've played in that big game at Lord's. You were then in England squads regularly, but you made your T20 debut in 2011, your ODI debut soon after in 2012. Did you feel ready to step up to that level at that stage at such a young age?
I felt like I had the potential, and at times now when you look back you're like, well, they picked you, so they must have believed in you. But I didn't say I felt ready. Walking into a dressing room with guys that established international players that you've idolised, and actually being a young kid when they started their careers, so it felt strange. It took me a good year, to be honest. It's probably the only credit I'll give you in this interview, that you and Morgs kind of took me under your wing and sort of showed me the ropes and looked after me. But it wasn't until I had that one over against Wayne Parnell at Edgbaston, where just before the T20 World Cup in Sri Lanka, that had a good innings, and that sort of gave me the belief that
I think that was the moment.
That was a huge moment for me, and because I sort of batted number 6, 7, hadn't had loads of chances really, but I hadn't done anything. And even though you've been picked and you want to prove yourself as much to the outside world and the media and it's actually the guys in the dressing room that you want to walk back in and sort of sit down next to him and they go, yeah, this guy can play, or he deserves to be here. And I hadn't had that moment really for me up until then. So that was a big moment for me to just sort of feel like, okay, I can do it at this level against, the top bowlers around the world.
Who were those people in the team at the time that you felt like you had to impress? Because there were big characters, weren't there, when you first came in? Kevin Peterson, people like that. You are now clearly that player to some young guys coming into the team. Do you remember who it was that you first walked in and thought, oh man, I'm sharing a dressing room with this bloke?
Yeah, I'd say that the names would be Swan, Peterson, Anderson, who I think was sort of like, they just seemed like otherworldly. They like as if, it's like being at Madame Tussauds really, and sort of you're with them, but are they actually real? But they were guys that I'd idolised and sort of big characters in. And even though Stuart Broad was sort of one of those guys, he was captain of the T20 side at the time, so he felt, he was obviously part of the reason I got picked and putting his arm around me. So that was good. But yeah, I think it's sort of those players that have been established internationals for a long time. As I mentioned before, Ewan Morgs were great for me in sort of, probably seeing a young guy who just needed a bit of help and a bit of reassurance that you deserve to be here and you've been through it, you know what it feels like. And that they're the kind of things now, 15 years on or whatever it is, I look back about how valuable that is to have a teammate just sort of be there for you and sort of just reassure you and say, you're going to be fine, it will all work out. At the time it's sort of, yeah, it's fine for you to say, but no, it makes a huge difference.
Are you aware of that as a senior player now in the team and having achieved everything that you've done? Is that something that when you see a young guy come into the team, you help yourself get around it?
I try and think so, yeah, and obviously have that experience of being captain as well. You know how important that can be, and sometimes it might not always be the captain that you find it easier to feel those words from. It might be a senior player is actually easier to be more open with, or be sort of, this sound fit, because the coach and the captain, you sort of want to come across as you're
in control of
yeah, exactly. You don't want to
to
show any kind of weakness and say, I'm feeling a bit unsure. So no, I think definitely it's, as your career progresses, it becomes a really important part of your role. And even just talking about it now, it's something I'm like, I've got to make sure in the 100 and get around a few of the younger players and sort of share some experiences. You don't want to come across like you know everything and you sort of impose yourself, but be available and actually understanding that as the more senior player and the guy who's been around a bit, you might have to make the first interaction. Don't you think, my door's always open, people will come to me, but I remember being a young kid sort of thinking, I'll go and ask Kevin Peterson a question is probably harder than if he just said to me, how are you doing, mate, what's happening? So yeah, being aware of that's really key.
Then the natural progression, you've played T20 cricket for England, you've played 50 over cricket for England, Test match cricket, you played over 50 odd tests, Ashes winner, played in some really significant series. How do you reflect on your Test match career?
Unfulfilled, I'd say. I think, like I said, I played a lot of games. I was really fortunate in a way probably to play that many, but I had periods in my Test career where I felt like I was understanding how I wanted to play and being contributing well to the team, to some good series wins, but I never probably had that for long enough, and I probably never was entirely comfortable with like my identity as a Test cricketer maybe, and like how I was going to play, and that's only down to me really. I had huge support. Joe Root was a brilliant captain for me. He really pushed me and believed in me, but I just felt like I never quite sort of had that. I had a couple of moments where I thought I've understand it and I break through. But
what were those moments?
A series against India in 2018. Had a brilliant IPL and I came back into the side when there's Ed Smith became the selector, and I felt very in control of my game, very comfortable with how I was going to play, and sort of it was quite an unheard of role, a specialist batter at number 7, but it was kind of a free hit for me really, which was great. And so that was good, but I just never had it for long enough, consistently enough, and I probably just battled myself too much. I was probably too hard on myself. Maybe I always sort of, in one day cricket, I'm always trying to dominate the bowler, and I probably didn't quite work out how to do that in Test cricket. I was probably too reactive to the ball coming down as opposed to trying to impose my game and be in control. But I loved Test cricket. I just thought it was like the hardest exam you could do. You know, but if you did well, it was more fulfilling than any cricket you can
still
play.
Feel like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Even recently during the Blast game, the Test was on, and Jimmy and I were sort of sat next to each other, and he said, "Oh, do you miss it?" I was like, "Absolutely, I miss it. I wish I'd done better at it so I could still be playing." There's something, you know, you're exactly the same. You've experienced it and played in great Test matches, and you can't replicate that. And we're very lucky in England. You get so well supported. You know, the crowds are amazing. So, yeah, absolutely miss it immensely.
Do you look at because you say, like, you're very self-deprecating, but you say unfulfilled. Do you look at this era now, the Stokes and McCullum, and the way that they play Test cricket as you're describing it, looking to be imposing on the front foot? I look at it as a bowler myself, and I think, man, if I played in this era, I'd have had so much fun. I probably would have got more out of myself. Do you have any similar feelings with that?
Oh, maybe a few times. Yeah, I think, you know, there'd be a great sort of leadership group to play in, and I'd love to experience that. But I had some great, you know, it's very easy to say that and think, oh, it's not my fault I didn't get the most out of myself. Well, it's definitely, you can only score your own runs, and obviously you need people to help you and create the environment to do that. But I don't want to feel like I'd say, oh, I'd be amazing if I played in this team, because I had my go, I had loads of chances, and I just personally never quite cracked it. And I talked about that moment at the start of that over against Wayne Parnell, which was for me massive. And it's like, have that moment fleetingly in Test cricket where I was like, this is the thing. But yeah, I think having worked with Brendan McCullum a little bit, he would have been brilliant for me as a person and as a player to probably alleviate some of the, you know, noise in my own head that can get there. So yeah, I think and what I love about what they've done and what they've done with Test cricket is, I think everyone, player and stuff, whether you're trying to get into that team or you've played before, you'd be like, oh, I'd love to play in that side. And I think that's one of the greatest credits you can give those guys, is that everyone would just be desperate to play for them. Yeah.
And talking about those tougher times, and it's easy, like, you look on social media and everyone's lives looks amazing, like an Instagram reel, that when you found those challenging times, because you've had a very long international career now, 14 years or so, and still going, and what were those tougher times? Like, can you identify any like particular flashpoints, and then how did you come through it to still be a very good and better player the other side of it?
I think to play for as long as I have, I think the longevity thing is the thing that probably pleases me the most, to be able to still be playing and play at a high level. I think it's one of the greatest compliments you can give to sports people, is to be able to play for a while. And you have to have a lot of resilience to be able to do it. You know, cricket's a tough sport and it can be pretty unrewarding at times, and you know, you need to find ways to deal with that. So I think having good people around you, and that's been a big part of it for me. Neil Fairbrother's, you know, I say he's my agent, but he's more of a mentor really, and he's a friend who's really helped me in my career and looked after me over a long period of time. Like you say, when you get those low moments, sort of rebuilding you and pushing you back up. Obviously family support is crucial to that, and I think it's probably, do you know what, getting dropped is actually not the worst thing, because you fear getting dropped, and you think, you know, you walk down the street and you like, bet he's talking about my form, or you go and order a coffee and you think, oh, I wonder if they're thinking, oh, you deserve to be dropped and you got no runs last week, and then it actually happens and you get left out and you realise that yes, you care and it's disappointing, but it's not that big a deal. You know, it's not the be all and end all, and life still goes on. It doesn't. Ashley Giles gave me a great piece of advice. Actually, he said, just because you had a bad day at cricket doesn't mean you're a bad person, and that was a big part of it for me as well. Just cricket isn't me. It's just something I do, and trying to manage that, the emotions that come with that, and sometimes time. You just need a little bit of time when you get dropped or you get left out, and you just need a bit of space from it, and then you sort of see it all becomes a bit clearer again, and build yourself back up. Yes, I'm still a good player. I just didn't play that well on that day or for that period of time, and to know that you can come back from it. And I think once you do come back, then you feel like in a better place the next time you get back involved in that environment, and then you've got stuff to call on. Okay, well, you maybe start to feel some of the feelings you had when this happened before, and know maybe how to cope with it a little bit better, and to be able to just manage your feelings, because you've got a lot of time as a cricketer. I think you've got a lot of time to think, and sometimes you can overthink stuff.
And psychologically, through your career, there was a period, I can't remember exactly when it was, you wrote on the handle of your bat, didn't you, to let it go effectively, in rather looser terms. Like what drew you to that, and then how much have you changed from that? Like, was that a marked moment in your career?
Yeah, that was actually the Wayne Parnell moment.
Yeah.
So Mark Borden, who you'd know well, who was the psychologist with the England team at the time, I went to him before that innings and had just said, look, I'm struggling a bit. I just feel a bit like I haven't proved to the rest of the guys that I can play. And so we sat down and he asked me a few questions about, what is it when you feel at your best? Just try and describe it. And I was describing a few things like I'd do with, technically or mentally. And then I basically said, do you know what? I'll just walk out there, and when I'm really clear, and I basically say, don't worry about it. And he was like, that's it. That's your mind. That's all you should work on, is trying to get to that point.
Is it still on your back now?
Yeah, it's still there, yeah. So, it's been a real constant reminder for me, and it's something some days I look at it a lot when I'm batting, some days I don't even think about it, but it's just a nice grounding kind of thing, and it helps me deal with lots of situations, whether it's in cricket and you've got out, or you're worried about playing a shot, or you need a bit of extra conviction to do something. It's just been something that it was a really helpful tool at the right time when I needed it, and probably by coincidence that innings happened straight after. But it's sort of when you get that relationship between, okay, this is my thoughts, and then you have a really big moment in your career, it's a really strong sort of bond between them.
So you progressed through the England ranks, you played all three formats, you become a regular in all three formats. Owen Morgan retires, and you're captain of the England white ball teams. I always saw you as a natural leader and someone who led within the dressing room, both like vocally and with your actions. Did it feel a natural transition to go from vice captain to captain?
Yeah, it did. I think having been Morgs' vice captain for a long time, and sort of probably being the most senior player in the side, it felt very natural that I was take over at some point. Probably came a bit earlier than I thought, but certainly felt ready for it, and obviously it's such a privilege, to get to captain your country is something I was very proud to do. Obviously had the high of winning the T20 World Cup, and then some very challenging times within that as well.
Have you allowed yourself to reflect, like it's now 4 or 5 months since you stepped down, like have you been able to reflect and enjoy the good times, because that can get lost in amongst the rubbish sometimes, can't it?
Yeah, I have, and I think actually it's something I've become more aware of, is the more time and space I've now got from stepping down. Reflecting on some good times, and actually probably a bit more understanding, and the sort of cloud kind of lifts, and you can see it for a bit clearer as to why things didn't go so well, or things that I would maybe have done differently, or things that I should have acted, or different bits. So I think it's just becomes a bit clearer. I think when you're in it, you're kind of so determined to try and make it right, and your ego can get in the way and say, no, everything's fine, I can do it.
You like put a wall up around you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I certainly did that, and I think that's probably one of the failings of that time in the end, was that I probably just need a bit more help, or a bit more sort of openness with people, or something like that. It's becoming a bit clearer, I think, certainly as I'm getting more space from it, and sort of understanding how I was feeling in that time. And do you know what, the 2023 World Cup was incredibly difficult, and sort of like even though we played badly, we played way worse than I would think we could ever play. And for that World Cup to happen the way it did was probably a huge confidence shock to my captaincy and everything.
Was it in the method or the fact?
Just everything.
Because
really,
to me, watching from the outside, that core of players that built between the 2015 and 19 World Cup played together a lot, and clearly you get confidence with that. Between the 2019 and 2023 World Cup, you didn't have that. Do you think that was a factor?
Yeah, it's a factor. It's one of many factors, I think. And that's where you sort of go, actually, the transition from that time, of 2015 to 19 to the, you know, whenever Morgs was going to move on. And obviously we were all sort of a similar age bracket as well. Those players were, you know, very much in our peak at 2019, and it all worked perfect. So actually when I look back and you say, oh, it's maybe everyone maybe assumed white ball cricket was in a great place and would just continue, but I think actually that role of taking it on from Morgs and creating another dynasty or whatever it may be, whatever word you want to call it, was going to be very difficult. And it's not something I was unaware of. I actually remember having a very clear conversation with Rob Key about that, but it's just the way sometimes timing and things don't quite work out, and we had some tricky decisions to make along the way which maybe affected everything really. And it's just I've just found it really interesting in having this time to reflect and get some space from it to go, you know, these little things, how much of an effect it can have. And
what little things?
Oh, just sort of, you know, relationships between, you know, the coach and captain, or certain players, or how to manage. You know, one very difficult selection was sort of around Harry Brook and Ben Stokes, and sort of that we had sort of 16 to get into 15, and you know, even the way I reflect on how that sort of few weeks pre-World Cup would have maybe affected the whole group going into the World Cup and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just sometimes there's like little moments that through no fault of your own, and at the time you're doing the best with the information you've got. But I think, you know, maybe there was a bit of a misalignment for people, and sort of, you know, it just didn't go into that tournament with thinking maybe everything was as rosy as the series victory against New Zealand sort of made it look.
Was there one particular thing when you decided to step down? Was there one particular thing that you thought, I've just had enough of this, I don't need this in my life anymore? Don't lead it in your life, but you like the one thing that made you just think, do you know what, I think I'd be better off for myself not to do this.
I just thought my race was run, to be honest, from having been involved, like I mentioned, in that 2023 World Cup as captain, the 2024 T20 World Cup, even though we got to the semi-finals, was, you know, sort of it felt like from the outside that wasn't really good enough, and we say, oh, we only beat X, Y and Z to get there. And I just knew for my captaincy we'd need to do really well in that Champions Trophy and win some games. And obviously McCullum had just come in as the coach of everything, and I was really excited to work with Baz. But we'd had a tough series in India, which can happen, they're pretty good at home. And I just knew that more so for me, and then more so for like the outside world, we'd have to do well straight away to sort of validate me continuing as captain, because I was sort of the only one left from all the time before. So I just knew that it was the right time for me to sort of get out the way and sort of take that. And I just think like I said, my race was run. I think comes a time in leadership where you probably think you've had some moments that haven't gone like you want them to, and it just takes away from the power of your leadership. You know, you just feel like you're not delivering the messages with the same conviction, or you've not got the same level of, not respect, because I always felt respected from the guys, but just like, well, what we've been talking about or you've been trying to drive forward just hasn't quite worked. So it just felt the right time to move on. And I feel obviously sad to step down, but obviously privileged to have done it. It's a great
and a World Cup winner.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's you have to remember that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very special time. And you know, the thinking about that tournament was awesome. So yeah, it's just probably for me the big one was that 2023 World Cup in India was a real kick in the teeth and sort of a confidence knock as a captain.
So you step down as captain, you then go to the IPL, you have one of your best IPLs ever, averaging 60, striking at 160. Your relationship with franchise cricket has always fascinated me, because you, Kevin Peterson, Owen Morgan, guys who've consistently played it, have always said how positively that has impacted your game and your wider game. 7 IPL hundreds. Like, is that true that you feel as though playing in the IPL makes you a clearly better player?
Yeah,
and franchise tournaments in general.
The IPL's had a huge impact on my career. I remember you talk about like moments in your career where you sort of a light bulb moment or something. My first ever IPL was sort of like, there's something different about the best players. Their mentality is different. It was just clear and obvious. So in the IPL, all the best players in the world are all in the same place at the same time. And one of the best things I've always enjoyed doing is just watching and just noticing. And at the IPL you get to train obviously with the guys in your team, some of the best players in the world, and two teams are training at the same time, so you can watch the opposition practice as well. And there's just a clear difference in the mentality and of all the, I'm talking like the top % of the players, and that was a big moment. Right, I need to try and get to that. I want that. I want to be that. I want to be the best player in the world. So that was one moment. And then again, sort of like 2018, I think it was, my first year with Rajasthan Royals. I remember, I had this moment. I was like, how come it's Kohli's day every day? You know, like he had an amazing tournament, and just sort of maybe the 2016 tournament, I think he scored 900 and something runs. But you always see the interviews of people, oh, today was just my day, everything worked for me. But it's like, well, it can't just be, why is it Kohli's day every day? And it can't just be because he's technically better or something. It's again coming into that mentality thing. So at that age, being 27, I think I spent a lot more time on the mental side of the game. And that being at the IPL there was something that I really worked hard on, that sort of understanding how I could, I've got all the things I want technically or talent, etc., but how can I build that within my game? And other thing the IPL does is sort of demystify people, so suddenly you're playing with some players that you thought were the best players in the world, and they never have a negative thought, and sat in a dressing room with them when they get out and they're berating themselves like the same, and they're worried about the game coming up, and you're sort of like, okay, these guys are normal as well. So franchise cricket's been brilliant for me. The IPL has been amazing for me to rub shoulders with all these players and the coaches that you come across, and it also puts a lot on you as the player to turn up at a franchise team, and the coach says, as an overseas player you've got huge expectation, and the coach says, what do you want, how do you need to prepare? So you need to know the answers to that, to say, okay, this is what I need from you, this is how I get the best out of myself, this is how I'm going to give the best to the team, and so that's been a big part of my sort of understanding of me as a person and a player, to then be able to sort of travel the world and go, I can dip into different tournaments and perform well.
So we're in the 5th year of the 100 competition. You didn't manage to play a game last year because of a bit of old man's calf, which all of us have fallen foul of at some stage. Are you excited to get out there in an English franchise competition? It feels like it's quite a big thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I've loved the 100. I think it's been brilliant. It's been, like I say, having played in different competitions around the world and seen the sort of impact that the franchise things have had, and the sort of crowds and the standard of cricket. I mean, it's exactly what you want on your own doorstep. So, to be able to go out there and play at home in front of the big crowds, and obviously with just 8 teams and the condensed talent, which we have a lot of in England. So it's a tournament as well. When you talk to other players around the world, they're all desperate to come and play in. So I think it's a really exciting time for the 100. Love to be involved. Obviously missed it last year with an injury, which is a shame. So looking forward to it even more so probably this year.
And you've got a young whippersnapper, wild card, James Anderson. You played with him domestically, but it's good to see him still going.
Yeah, amazing. And I know lots of people are like, oh, why is Jimmy carrying on? He's done so much in international cricket. But playing with him, he just genuinely loves cricket, and he loves competing, and he obviously is competing and doing it well, and
feels like he's getting better.
And he feels like he can still do it. So it's been amazing actually. Just played some blast games with him, and the skill level's obviously still there, and how much he just loves, trying to contribute to the team and win. And he's also been amazing in the dressing room, I've noticed. Like I mentioned at the start of my international career, I thought Jimmy was quite an intimidating guy. And,
he could be. If you misfielded off him,
if you misfield one off him, or you don't pass the ball to him correctly, he might not speak to you for a week or so. But he's been amazing to see him in the dressing room with some of the young Lancashire lads, and sort of they're all getting to hang out with Jimmy Anderson, which is quite surreal, I think, for them. And obviously he's got a real passion to help. He wants to get into coaching, I think, at some point, and coach players, not just be like a Jimmy Anderson who is there to sort of take a mitt. He actually wants to really make an impact, and I think he's been doing that even while he's now playing, as well as he's doing his own stuff. It's been pretty cool for the guys to have him in the dressing room.
So Jos Buttler, 50 over World Cup winner, T20 World Cup winner, Ashes winner, IPL winner. What is it that keeps you going and keeps you motivated now? You're young and you're fit and you will play for a significant period of time, but what's that one burning light that keeps you going?
I think competing is one thing I love doing. I love getting out there trying to win games of cricket, and I think also sort of batting is one of those things that you're trying to sort of master it, and you never will, or maybe other people do, but it always keeps you coming back for more. What can I add to my game? How can I improve? What can I do better? Or sort of different shots that I might try. Even recently I never used to run down the wicket much to seamers, and it was a conversation with Kumar Sangakkara. He said, you could add this to your game. So that's something I've been really working on. I like having something to go to practice every day that I'm intrigued to find out more about or have a passion to get better at. And I think when that stops, because the games sort of take care of themselves, because you sort of playing in front of a crowd and there's a big game and you want to win and compete. But I think the love of practice is the thing that I still have very much so. Just I really enjoy batting. I can sort of see it now, that like looking through your grill, tapping your bat on the floor is like kind of your, sadly, is your sort of happy place, ready to try and whack one.
Licking your lips because Stephen Finn's bowling at you.
Yeah. So no, I think as long as that's still there, I'll be sort of really keen to keep going as long as I can. But I also don't, you don't want to just sort of, I don't want to do a disservice or anything to your team. If that isn't there, then you just have to be honest with yourself, I guess, and say, maybe. But it's certainly very strongly still there at the moment. So that's a big plus for me.